Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. I didn't plan on stealing the train. It just sort of happened. I was the last guy left on shift when the rail yard went silent. Cheyenne, Wyoming, day 3 of the outbreak. Back then, they were still calling it a viral event. Back then, we thought fences and isolation would hold. I was in a Union Pacific yard shack, half asleep in the break room, when the emergency alert buzzed in. Not the regular weather tone. This one came from the DHS band, only used for drills or serious stuff. The message was short. All personnel evacuate. Do not approach exposed individuals. Proceed to designated shelters. There was no designated shelter listed. I walked out and saw the first one, a welder named Harris. He was dragging his left foot like it wasn't connected right, face slack, jaw hanging open. He walked past a crane operator slumped on the ground, face torn up. I didn't approach. I just stepped backward and closed the break room door. Then I locked it. 12 hours later, I was still inside. I'd blocked the windows with tool lockers. My radio had gone silent. Nothing on the public channel, nothing on the yard frequency, only noise. But I knew the layout, and I knew what was sitting 2 tracks over, a big diesel freight hauler still idling from an overnight fuel top-up. I waited until nightfall, crept out with bolt cutters, my duffel, and a key card, climbed the ladder into the cab like I'd done 1,000 times before, and then I just left. Pulled the throttle, eased out of the yard, and rolled out of Cheyenne with no headlights, no plan, and one goal: don't stop. That was 642 days ago. We call it the Iron Convoy now. 13 freight cars, 2 engines, 1 live, 1 stripped for parts. A flatbed-turned garden, a livestock car with a couple goats. Passenger cars we scavenged and welded to the frame, and around 28 people last I checked. I do the engine checks, I keep us running. And this morning, I smelled something that didn't belong. I was under the second axle when the odor hit. Burned metal, coolant, and something sharper like ozone. I checked the pressure gauge. Tank 3 was leaking again. I shouted for Deke to toss me the wrench, and he missed by 2 feet like always. "You think the seals are gonna hold another week?" he asked, crouching by the side ladder. He used to be a mechanic, supposedly. Never said from where. "Nope," I said, cranking the bolt until my shoulder protested. "But they'll hold until Casper." That's our next stop, Casper, Wyoming. Not a refueling depot, not a real city anymore. But we got word on the shortwave 2 nights ago, some crew running a wind farm east of the river. They've got a tank of diesel, old military surplus, and they're willing to trade. That's why I spent the last hour climbing through engine vents, checking pressure lines, and making sure we can keep moving if anything goes wrong. Because if we stall out on the Platte crossing, we won't get a second chance. I'm back in the cab now. Just did final checks. The sun's almost up. Most folks are asleep or pretending to be. Tarped windows, blackout panels on the garden car, goat in the livestock car already chewing through its bedding. Deke's on perimeter duty. Lena's on the food run rotation. I'm in the cab watching the rail ahead while we coast at 20 miles per hour down a half-rusted line, barely held together with hopes and cold welds. I see a flicker in the trees, snap the binoculars up, nothing but branches. I reach for the PA mic. Eyes left, mile marker 173. Something moved. Crackle, then. Copy that. I'll check top hatch. That's Lena. She climbs like she was born for it. 2 minutes later, I hear the roof latch thunk shut behind me. She slides next to the cab window, crouched low. Her eyes flick toward the forest. "I saw it too," she says. "What was it?" She doesn't answer right away. Then, too far. Too quiet. But it ducked. They don't duck. That's the kind of sentence that doesn't need to be said out loud. I nod and shift the engine up a notch. 25 miles per hour now. Fast enough to outrun most things on foot. Slow enough that we can still stop if the track's blocked. We both sit quiet for the next 5 miles. Then the radio crackles again. Car 5 reports movement in the grain silo. Repeat. Movement, not infected. Just got a mirror flash. Deke's voice this time. We've seen that before. Survivors trying to signal with broken glass or old side mirrors. Some don't know what the train is. Some think we're a trap. Lena's already halfway down the ladder before I say a word. I call for a slow roll. The train starts to decelerate, braking with a low grind. We haven't stopped in 26 days. We slow to 10 miles per hour. Someone hits the switch to open the right side panel on car 5. Two figures step out, Lena and Cooper. He used to be National Guard, keeps a .38 slung across his chest like it still means something. The train slows again, 5 miles per hour now. We crawl past the silo, an old concrete thing with half the roof missing. I spot it. Top hatch. Someone's in there. A kid, maybe 12, maybe less. Face covered in soot or ash, holding something shiny in both hands. Lena waves. The kid doesn't wave back. Then the mirror falls, shatters on the ground below. The kid disappears. Cooper raises his sidearm. Lena grabs his arm. She points down. Movement. Too late. The scream that comes out of that silo doesn't belong to any child. It's high-pitched, clipped, and guttural. We've heard it before. Screamers, mutated, infected that mimic voices, usually bait. Lena dives back for the ladder. Cooper's still standing his ground, backing up with the pistol raised. The brush behind the silo shakes once, then again, then they pour out. Shamblers first, dozens, then sprinters, then something with an extra arm on its chest. I slam the emergency brake. The rear cars grind and buck. People start yelling over the radio. Deke's already in the livestock car with a scope on the roof. Shots crack. Lena makes it up. Cooper doesn't. The last thing I see is his silhouette disappear in the dust cloud as the train pulls forward again. I don't stop. Not this time. We're not built for rescue. Not anymore. I keep the engine throttled up. 20, then 30 miles per hour. The whole frame rattles like it's going to shake loose. Someone yells over the comm. Contact at rear. Something made it onto car 12. I yank the brake again, just a touch. Just enough to pull us into a siding curve coming up at mile 184. The steel rails here are warped but passable, a line we cleared and inspected during our westward run nearly a year ago. I remember Deke spending 3 hours with a blowtorch, trying to cut away a derailed boxcar that had melted into the ballast. It didn't move then. Now it looks like it's sagging farther into the earth, a sun-bleached wreck with claw marks etched across the old rust. We glide past it, the engine groaning slightly as the convoy shifts its weight into the curve. The radio is hot with overlapping calls. Car 12 is the backmost unit, a gutted coal carrier we use for waste and overflow storage. Nobody lives there, but if something got on board, infected or not, it's a threat to everything we've built. The protocol is simple: isolate, assess, eliminate. But that's easier said than done when you're moving 40 tons of steel and trying not to derail in the middle of nowhere. Car 11 sealed, no contact since last check. Lena's voice comes through, clipped and sharp. Confirming visual on car 12, rear latch open, movement inside. I grip the throttle and ease it back. The train slows, not to a crawl, not enough to stop completely, just enough to give the defense crew time to act. I can see them through the mirror panels on car 10, climbing the roof and making their way toward the rear. Deke's already up top, rifle strapped across his chest, crawling on hands and knees to avoid the vibration. Try not to shoot the diesel tanks, I mutter into the mic, voice flat. We've only got 240 gallons left. No one responds. The siding takes us along a shallow ridge, elevation rising on the left, open fields stretching wide to the right. It's good terrain, less cover for anything trying to flank us, but bad if we have to stop. No tree line, no barriers, no fallback. I glance at the gauges, engine temperature holding, brake line pressure fluctuating slightly, normal for our load. I tap the cabin roof twice with the wrench hanging from the window clamp. That's our non-verbal code for ready. Lena's already back on the top rail of the forward car, motioning for two others, Emmett and Rena, to take flank positions by the locking hinges. Then the call comes in, barely audible through static. Movement in car 12, not infected, could be a survivor. I click the mic. Negative, no pickups, confirm ID before contact. Already inside, comes the answer. I shut my eyes for a second. Someone panicked. Opened the back latch without clearance. Now we have a breach from inside the line. That's how these things happen, not from outside claws, but from inside mercy. The door between cars 11 and 12 is bolted. I know it is because I bolted it myself 3 nights ago during a storm out near Laramie. But there are access hatches between the roof plates, vents that can be unscrewed, narrow gaps in the armor railings that weren't designed to be climbed, the kind of things you overlook until something that shouldn't be alive finds a way through. I grip the side rail of the cabin, push the throttle forward, and give the brakes one slow release. The engine lurches slightly as we resume speed, 22, then 25 miles per hour. The ridge is behind us now, and the curve ends at a slight downhill stretch, a mile of it. If we coast and time it right, we can isolate the last car, uncouple it manually, and let it drift back into the valley. We've done it once before, near Salina, a medical car that got hit. 4 people inside. We never opened it again. Deke signals from the roof. Thumbs up. He's reached the rear coupling. I see him lean over, twist the safety pin, and brace his legs wide. There's a jolt through the frame, then another, and then we're lighter. Car 12 uncoupled, Lena confirms. Rear car rolling back, no pursuit yet. No visual on infected, I ask? None, but something moved. Of course it did, it always does. We leave car 12 behind as the sun starts to crest the eastern sky, casting a long orange blade of light across the fields. The shadows get longer, the tension shorter. I keep my eyes on the rail ahead, but my mind's back on the face I saw in that silo. That wasn't a kid, it was something wearing a kid's shape. Screamers do that sometimes. They evolve, or maybe just degrade in a way that tricks us. Our ears catch the voice and our minds fill in the rest. That's what nearly got Cooper. That's what almost got the whole convoy compromised. The radio crackles again. This time it's Rena, her voice lower, slower. We didn't seal car 11. I glance at the console. Say again? I was on latch duty last rotation, she says. I didn't lock 11. I forgot. I thought someone else had it. I saw them go through it yesterday. My fingers tighten on the throttle lever. Who? There's a pause. Then, I don't know. Lena's already moving. I hear her drop from the roof to the side ladder. The interior comm clicks off. She's entering car 11. I hit the train-wide broadcast. All personnel, hold position. Do not open doors without confirmation. Repeat. Car 11 may be compromised. Wait for Lena to clear. Silence. Then static. Then the faint hiss of a microphone left open. I pull the scope feed from car 10's roof cam. Grainy image. Lots of motion blur. I catch Lena's boots crossing the gangway, stepping inside. The door closes behind her. That car used to be a livestock carrier. We refitted it for supply. Rations, canned goods, spare wire, and 3 sleeping hammocks for rotating crew. There's no reason anyone should have been passing through yesterday, unless they were hiding something. Lena? I ask. Nothing. I wait 30 seconds. Still nothing. I flick the engine back into neutral and climb down the side ladder. Wind presses against my jacket. Dust sweeps along the metal floor like ash. I pass Deke, still watching the rear where car 12 vanished into the dip. He nods once and doesn't speak. The look says everything. I reach the coupling between cars 10 and 11. Knock once on the sidewall. No answer. I unlatch the door, slide it open 6 inches, and peek through the gap. The smell hits first. Not rot, not blood. Something else. Ozone and disinfectant. The kind of sterile stench you find in abandoned hospitals or quarantine tents left in the sun too long. I draw the crowbar from my belt clip and step inside. Lena's standing in the center of the car, flashlight beam cutting through dust. She's not moving. You find anything? I ask. She tilts her head slightly but doesn't speak. Lena. She raises a finger and points. Far end of the car, a supply bin. The lid is cracked open. We move together, careful, silent, deliberate. Every creak of the floor grates against my skull. I hear faint scraping inside the bin, not frantic, rhythmic, like fingernails on plastic. We stop 3 feet away. Lena mouths a count. 1, 2, 3. She lifts the lid. Inside is a child, maybe 8 years old. Pale, eyes wide, wrapped in an emergency blanket. No bites, no blood, just shaking. I lower the crowbar. Lena's jaw clenches. We don't move. The kid blinks once, then speaks. Please don't leave me in the dark. I stare at her face, trying to decide what's real and what's not, whether this is another trick, another mutation. The dim light makes everything feel unsteady. Her eyes flick between me and Lena like she's memorizing our faces, as if she's seen too many disappear. There's nothing hostile in her movements, no erratic twitches, no signs of infection, at least not the kind we know how to look for. Still, I don't lower the crowbar completely. Lena hasn't moved either. The train groans beneath us as we resume a shallow downhill drift, the coupling plates rattling softly between cars like distant footsteps on metal. The child breathes quietly but steadily, like she's been trained not to panic. That detail lodges in my mind. Training. Not behavior learned by fear, but behavior taught. There's too much calculation in how still she's sitting, knees tucked in, hands visible, eyes scanning without darting. That's not how most kids respond after a scare, and definitely not after hiding in a bin like that. She's been told what to do, coached, conditioned. The military tag confirms it. Someone, somewhere, tried to prepare her for the end of the world. Lena finally takes a step back and slings the flashlight over her shoulder. She doesn't speak, but she doesn't need to. Her stance eases by a fraction, just enough for me to feel the shift in air. I kneel slowly and meet the girl's gaze head on. There's grime on her cheeks, ash in her hair, a tear along the left knee of her jeans. No visible wounds. Her fingers are raw though, scraped along the knuckles, maybe from climbing or clawing. I ask her name. My voice is low, steady. She hesitates before answering. Then she says it's Harper. Just Harper, no last name, no mention of family. She doesn't ask if we're going to help her or where we're taking her, just waits. I glance at the barcode again and commit the sequence to memory. Those tags were issued during the final 2 weeks of the Colorado corridor collapse. That puts her origin somewhere near the Pueblo quarantine stations. That corridor went dark 4 months ago. I remember hearing it on the emergency band, multiple containment failures, last convoy rerouted, civilian shelters lost in the fire zones. No survivors reported from inside the burn radius, but here she is. I stand and motion for Lena to stay. She watches Harper without blinking. I exit the car, closing the door behind me, and climb back into the engine cab. The ridge we descended earlier is now far behind us. The radio is silent. I switch to a closed channel and patch through to Rena, who's stationed in car 3. The med unit. I tell her we found something, not a breach, not an infected, a civilian. She doesn't respond for a few seconds, then asks the only question that matters. Is she clean? I say yes, as far as we can tell. Rena tells me to bring her forward, slowly, and isolate her in the infirmary pod. She'll prepare a full scan, visual check, vitals, behavioral metrics. We don't have real labs anymore, just observation tools and a very strict checklist of symptoms. It's not foolproof. But it's what we've got. I key the train-wide channel and make the announcement brief. No cause for alarm, no immediate threat. 1 civilian recovered during sweep. Temporary isolation protocols in effect. Anyone violating the secure perimeter gets locked out, no exceptions. I turn the throttle slightly, adding speed back to the drift. The train responds with a low hum, like it's relieved to be moving again. In the mirror, I can see Deke still perched on the rear car, his figure small and hunched like a gargoyle. He won't ask questions, he'll keep watch. He knows what happens when we let emotion override caution. The last time someone broke protocol for a stranger, we lost 5 people in a night. When I return to car 11, Lena has already led Harper to the main corridor, arms loosely crossed, body angled just enough to block her from seeing anything sensitive. I nod toward car 3, and the 3 of us begin the long walk forward. The sounds of the convoy deepen around us, metal flexing, tools shifting, low murmur from sleeping quarters. People peek through narrow hatches but say nothing. Everyone knows not to interrupt when someone's being moved under watch, especially when it's a child. We reach the medical car in under 5 minutes. Rena opens the side hatch with a hiss of pressurized hinges. She's wearing a full barrier wrap and has already prepped the scanner loop. The room is tight, cold, and lit by yellow bulbs that cast long shadows against the stainless floor. Harper doesn't flinch at the equipment. She steps inside like she's done it before, stands in the marked zone, and raises her arms without being told. That hits me harder than anything else. She knew the drill. Rena runs her through the scan. No lesions, no twitch response. Pupil dilation is clean. Core temperature stable. She even runs a vocal stress test, asks Harper a string of unrelated questions to measure emotional variance. The graphs show elevated stress, but no deception spikes. She's scared, but she's not lying. We step into the airlock corridor, leaving Harper under observation. I ask Rena what she thinks. She shrugs once, hands still folded over her tablet. She's real. She's been through hell. Probably watched her family die, but she's not infected. Lena crosses her arms, voice dry. Then what's she doing out here? How'd she make it past 3 states and onto our train? Rena looks from her to me, then says something I hadn't considered. She wasn't running from the infected, she was running from whoever put that tag on her. I lean against the bulkhead and let that idea settle. If she was from one of the containment camps, maybe she wasn't rescued, maybe she escaped. If so, there could be others, or something worse, something that didn't want survivors reaching the outside. We leave her under watch and move back to the main cabin. Lena walks in silence, her eyes scan the rail ahead, but I can tell her mind is behind us. Stuck back in that silo, watching Cooper vanish again and again in her head. The train clears the foothills by midday. We're approaching the old Union Pacific junction outside Evansville, rail still mostly intact, though the signal posts have been dead for months. We've used this corridor twice before. It's a dead loop, but it gives us options. North toward the refueling site, or east toward the river bypass in case the main line's blocked. I call for a crew meeting, only senior hands. We gather in the dining car, still reinforced with plate steel and blackout curtains. I brief them quick. Screamer encounter, car 12 jettisoned, 1 casualty, 1 civilian rescued. Emmett slams a fist on the table. Not at me, not even at the girl. Just frustration that bubbled over. He asks what everyone else is thinking. How many more times are we going to risk the entire convoy for a stranger? How long until the next one isn't clean? I let the question hang. Then I answer with numbers. We have 28 people. We're down to 4 months of reliable fuel. 2 water filters are near end of life. 3 sections of track are decaying beyond repair. We cannot afford to keep shrinking. We either grow or we collapse. It's not about hope, it's math. The train needs hands, minds, people who can fix what breaks and farm what we plant. We vote, the girl stays. Under strict supervision, 1 strike, she's offloaded at the next supply zone. No one speaks against it, but no one agrees out loud either. That night I sit alone in the engine cab, listening to the hum of the rails. I adjust the throttle slightly, keeping us steady at 28 miles per hour. The wind outside is dry, harsh, scraping against the side panels like sandpaper. In the side mirror, I see lights flicker through the trees, a signal tower, or something else. I switch to infrared, no heat signatures. Then I see movement, 2 silhouettes, tall, steady, not infected, watching us from the tree line. They don't move, they don't wave, they just watch. I mark the coordinates, tag the location, and log the time. Day 642, mile marker 211. Unknown observers near trackside, not infected, not responding, possible uniform. I underline the last part twice and draw a red slash through the log margin. That's our silent code for non-civilian presence. It doesn't mean government. It doesn't even mean trained. It just means they weren't wandering. Whoever those 2 were, they stood like sentries. No twitching, no slouch, no weapons raised, but no fear either, which is almost worse. I cut engine speed down to 23 and radio the spotter car. Rena answers with the same flat tone she always uses when she doesn't want to panic anyone. She confirms visual. 2 figures, no chase, no approach, just standing. Deke chimes in from the rear post and says something similar. He saw one of them raise a hand as the train passed. Not waving, not signaling, just holding it out, palm flat, like a checkpoint. I keep us rolling. We're too exposed on this stretch to stop and too light on munitions to assume it's friendly. The train wasn't built for diplomacy, not after last winter. We follow the southern curve of the old riverbed and push into the outskirts of Evansville as the sun starts to dip. This is where it gets risky. Urban fringe, low tree cover, multiple access roads that haven't been properly barricaded since the early months. Some of these feeder lines run through industrial yards and broken switch yards where infected tend to gather in the shadows, hiding from the sun like burnt leaves stuck under a log. I don't see any immediate blockages, but I order a full lights-out protocol anyway. No visible beams, just infrared, radio relay, and reflective markers along the cab wall to keep orientation. The rest of the crew already knows what to do. We've practiced this dozens of times. Every window sealed, every hatch bolted. No foot traffic between cars unless critical. Even the goats go quiet when the lights drop, as if they've started to understand the rhythm of our fear. The girl, Harper, is still in isolation, but now she's moved into the forward med bay, closer to Rena's bunk. Not because she asked, because she didn't. That kind of silence unsettles everyone. Most kids cry, or beg, or sleepwalk through their nightmares. Harper just sits, draws occasionally, stares at shadows and sometimes hums under her breath. Never loud, never erratic, just low, repetitive patterns that never match any song I recognize. Rena said she found a symbol drawn on her wrist with charcoal, a triangle inside a circle, crude, worn, like it had been copied from memory over and over until the skin turned gray. I asked if she thought it was religious. Rena said it looked military, or worse, experimental. I'm not sure what worse means anymore. As the last of the twilight fades, we reach the signal yard. It's a good refueling stop if it's clear. We've used it before. The tanks are buried underground, marked with old black and white hazard tape and welded over with scavenged pump rigs. We tap diesel from them like thieves in a dead empire, but it takes time, and someone has to man the pump outside the train. I switch to internal frequency and summon the refuel team. Emmett volunteers, of course. Always the first to volunteer when the risk's highest. Probably his way of dealing with everything he lost in the first few months. Family, unit, friends. Some people collapse under weight. Emmett just carries it until his back breaks. I slow the train to 12 miles per hour, then 10, then full brake. We roll to a stop beside the half-buried tank mound, which still has the scorched markings of an old National Guard checkpoint burned into the soil. The tower nearby is collapsed, one side of it buried in a tangle of rebar and broken stairs. A good sniper perch once, now just a nesting zone for birds or worse. Emmett drops from car 4 with a pump hose slung over one shoulder and a crowbar in the other. Deke spots from the roof. I remain in the cab, systems live, engine hot. If I need to roll in 10 seconds, I can. The pump sputters to life with a coughing wheeze. The hose latches. Flow starts slow, then evens out. We've got maybe 12 minutes before we hit the limit of safety. Lena joins me in the cab, eyes on the rear monitors. She doesn't speak for a full minute. Then she says it quietly, almost as if she's afraid to confirm it. We've been followed. I don't ask how she knows. I just ask how far. 3 miles, maybe 4, on foot, no vehicles, patterned movement, always just out of visual range. Same 2. More now, at least 5. I tighten my grip on the brake lever. She doesn't need to tell me what that means. Someone's tracking the iron convoy, either for intel, for supplies, or for something else. Something we haven't seen before. Over the radio, Emmett confirms 90 gallons transferred. Not enough for a long push, but enough to reach Casper if we stay efficient. Then his voice drops mid-sentence, a pause. Then he whispers, movement, northwest corner, by the tower ruins. I lean into the external cam feed, infrared flares red. I catch a silhouette dart between shadows, human, upright, thin build. Another follows it, then another. Then stillness, no rush, no charge, just calculated movement. Emmett unhooks the hose and slaps the valve closed. Fuel backflow hisses against the side tank, pressurizing in a slow exhale that echoes through the steel walls. He bolts for the ladder and climbs up as 2 figures step into the edge of the clearing, close enough to see their faces. They're not infected, they're not normal either. Their skin is pale, stretched but intact. Their eyes shine like polished glass, clear, unblinking. Uniforms, yes, but not military issue. Homemade patches, grey-black camo dyed in soot. Each one wears a circular emblem on the upper sleeve, a triangle inside a circle. Harper's mark. One of them raises his hand, palm forward, the same gesture Deke saw earlier. I freeze the monitor, count 5 behind him, 3 holding pole arms, scrap metal welded into halberd shapes, 2 with sidearms, 1 with a pack slung low like he's carrying equipment or maybe instruments. They don't approach, just stand there. We don't move either. Then the lead figure lowers his hand, turns his head slightly and speaks. No sound over the monitor. He's too far, but the lips are clear. He says, "Return her." And then they vanish, slipping into the tree line like smoke. Emmett climbs aboard and doesn't speak. Lena pulls the side hatch closed. I don't call a meeting, don't make a speech. I throttle up and drive the iron convoy straight into the night, leaving the fuel site behind, watching shadows stretch beside us like claws on the dirt. The engine shudders with each rail joint we pass, like it's fighting to keep pace with something behind us, something faster than steel and just patient enough to follow without ever getting too close. I keep one eye on the IR scope and the other on the cabin's vibration monitor. If even a single wheel slips or skips, we'll feel it before we hear it. That's how close this machine is to the edge. That's how close we are. The crew stays quiet over comms. There's no formal silence order, but it settles over us naturally, like the train itself knows it's better not to announce anything in the dark. Lena hovers near the cabin door, not inside the cab but close enough that I hear her shift her weight every few minutes. She's not resting, just standing guard. We've all taken turns like that, mornings without sleep, evenings without food, watching the trees pass like flickering ghosts beyond the safety of welded steel. We've pushed 30 miles from the last visual contact, no pursuit on infrared. No strange noises. The forest to our west thins out into scrub, and the old mining town of Glenrock appears ahead, a sprawl of silent buildings and rusted silos overtaken by sagebrush and ash. The place has been empty since the first firebombing runs. Nothing alive should be there, but I still slow down to 15 miles per hour and hit the horn once, not because I expect anyone to answer, just to see what echoes. The blast rolls over the valley like thunder off the back of something dead. No answer, not even birds. I log the time, throttle back to cruising and send word down the line. Stay sealed. We're not stopping. Not even if we see signs of movement. Not unless it's fuel or food. When I finally ease back into my seat, my legs are stiff and my hand is aching from the throttle grip. I stretch, shift my weight, and catch something out of place in the corner mirror. Just a sliver of motion, but enough to make me pause. A curtain in car 3, where the med bay is, moves slightly, not flapping, sliding, like someone trying to stay out of sight. Harper. I flip to the internal monitor feed, eyes scanning camera 2, which points toward the corridor leading out from the bay. Nothing. Just Rena's coat hanging by the hatch and the usual row of secured crates. The infrared overlay picks up one faint heat signature, barely above ambient, small, low to the floor. I patch through to Lena. She's out, she responds instantly, already halfway up the ladder by the time I reach the mid-car walkway. We don't need a search party. We just follow the cold. The girl's not running, she's not hiding either, she's moving with purpose. That's the part that unnerves me most. We find her in car 6, crouched near the storage lockers. The side door is unlatched, not open, just unlatched. One pull and it would slide free. She's got the crowbar I keep in the emergency rack and she's holding it like someone taught her to swing, not recklessly but precise. Rena kneels a few feet away, hands up, no panic, no anger, just control. She wasn't trying to escape, she says softly. She was waiting. I ask Harper what she's waiting for. The girl looks up at me, pupils dilated but steady. She doesn't answer, just draws a shape in the dust on the floor, a circle, triangle inside, line across the middle, same as before. Then she wipes it away with her sleeve and places the crowbar gently on the ground. That's when we hear it. A long tone, rising from the forest, low and harmonic. Not human, not a screamer, not even a known call. It pulses through the rails, not just the air, and the whole convoy vibrates with it like a tuning fork. It lasts 7 seconds, then silence. Lena looks at me. They're not chasing, she says. They're signaling. Back in the cab, I scramble to isolate the frequency. The comm array picks up nothing, but the onboard vibration monitor is still active and the pitch it recorded matches a specific pattern. Low, high, low. We've seen it once before. At the tower ruins north of Rawlins, a sequence pulsed through buried lines as we passed. No follow-up, no known origin. I patch into our emergency records and match the time code. Same pattern, same spacing, same decay. That's not a coincidence. It's a language. Harper stands at the cabin threshold now, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Her eyes follow the sound like she understands it. She doesn't speak, but when the tone ends, she turns to me and says one word, Casper. It's not a request, it's a destination. I open the map and run the rail overlay. Casper is 96 miles due west, accessible through 2 active sidings and a decayed bridge over the North Platte River. We've avoided it in the past. Too exposed, too unstable, but there's one entry point that might still be intact. An industrial freight yard connected to an old military substation, used for drills back in the 90s, might still have buried tanks, might still have electricity. We vote. It's split, 5-5. Then Rena breaks the tie. She's seen Harper up close, read her vitals, watched her while she slept. She says if this girl has something to do with the group tracking us, it's better to control that variable on our terms. We can't outrun something that doesn't tire. We set a new course. That night, as we pass through open desert, a fire lights up the horizon. Controlled burn, patterned blaze, not random. Lines in the scrub like someone traced runes in fire and set them loose to drift across the flatlands. I switch to roof cam view and magnify. A figure stands in the center of one of the fire rings. Arms out, looking up, not moving. The flames rise, curl back, then vanish like someone hit a kill switch. 1 second there's light, dancing across the ridge in perfect arcs. The next it's like the fire was never there. No embers, no smoke, not even a glow on the sand. Just black earth and one faint indentation where the figure had been. Nothing to tell us if it was human, infected, or something else entirely. But the image doesn't leave me. I keep seeing it in my mind's eye as the train rolls forward, arms out, looking skyward, like the whole thing was ritual. I check the heat scanners, no residual trace. The onboard vibration sensors are still jittering, just a hair above baseline, as if the rails are humming with something low and constant that I can't hear but the train can. I turn off the scanner feed for a moment and sit in the dark, not because I need rest, but because I need silence. Real silence, not the illusion we've built behind steel doors and blackout curtains. The girl is still awake. Harper doesn't sleep much. She lies still, sure, and closes her eyes, but I don't think she lets herself drift. Rena has taken to staying nearby, partly for observation, partly because Harper started talking again, but only in the early hours, just before sunrise, as if something in her relaxes when the sky turns grey. She doesn't talk about the world before. She doesn't mention parents or homes or quarantine stations. Instead, she tells stories like someone much older, short, clipped tales about places without names, fires that don't give off smoke, voices inside the earth, lights in the sky that blink once and never come back. I thought she was dreaming aloud at first, but then she started drawing again. On the wall of the med car, in grease pencil, careful not to mark over vital panels or supply inventory labels. Circles intersecting at precise angles, triangles pointing downward, each with a single line drawn off one point like a broken spearhead, and numbers, always in threes, sometimes coordinates, sometimes sequences we later found mirrored in abandoned CDC logs and black site reports from the early months of the outbreak. Rena copied one of the symbols onto her pad and matched it to an old government schematic, the kind filed and then sealed under health security codes we were never supposed to see, but things leak when the world collapses. Turns out one of those symbols was stamped onto a data block we found outside an overrun relay station north of Denver, burned into plastic with a laser engraver, no unit designation, no organization, just the symbol. Harper draws it from memory. I stopped the train near a ridge west of Alcova Reservoir, not for fuel, not for rest, just to recalibrate. It's the only stretch between Glen Rock and the Casper Junction that's high enough to give a proper view of the valley, and the air is dry enough that if anything is burning, we'll see it from 20 miles out. We form a security ring at dusk, standard overwatch positions, one on the engine roof, one on the caboose, one mid-train with a high-angle rifle scope. Rena brings Harper up front. I don't order it. She just does, says the girl asked to see the sky again. I unlock the cabin dome and let the platform unfold. It's old, more decorative than functional, a welded balcony built for observation back when the train was still part of a tourism line. Now it's the closest thing to a lookout post we have. From there you can see the last 10 miles of track, rusted, blistered, winding into the edge of a town that no longer exists, except on maps and grave markers. We stand in silence. Harper watches the skyline, then she whispers something, so soft I almost miss it. They were trying to stop it, not spread it. I ask her who. She doesn't answer directly, just taps the patch sewn into her collar, the one with the triangle inside the circle. She says they had rules, they had limits, but when the cities fell, something came loose, something ancient, older than the virus, older than people. It sounds like madness. I want to say it is, but I don't. Because deep down I remember things too. Flashes of the early days, reports of infected walking into rivers and not resurfacing, sightings of lights moving underground, entire townships going silent without a trace of broken fences or blood trails. And I remember the look on the face of that last federal liaison we picked up out of Salt Lake, the one who begged us not to go east, the one who died 2 days later from a wound we never found. Harper says the virus wasn't man-made. Not entirely. It was found, excavated, a spore colony buried under a fault line that cracked during the Oklahoma fracking collapses. She says it didn't spread like people thought. It called. That's why the infected migrate in circles. That's why screamers echo each other's cries even when they're miles apart. It's not instinct, it's transmission. I don't sleep. I sit in the cab with the monitor dimmed and the relay line open to Lena, who's on rear guard. She hasn't spoken in over an hour. I think she's watching the same feed I am, thermal signatures moving on the edges of the rail bed. Not close enough to pose a threat, not interested in boarding, just pacing, always just out of range. I open the cabin logs and make an entry. Day 643, start of entry, 0200 hours. Confirmed sightings of organized movement parallel to track line. No signs of infection markers, no weapons drawn. Markings observed, circle triangle insignia. Total count 16. They're growing in number, or they're converging. The train's still holding together, but she's straining. Fuel's good for another 130 miles at current pace. Water's tight. One of the filters went out yesterday, and Deke's been hammering the casing back into shape ever since. It's holding, but barely. If we lose another, we'll have to boil everything, and that's slow and risky with the kind of particulate we've seen out here. Ash, bone dust, things that shouldn't be in the soil. Rena radios again. Harper's drawing something new, not symbols this time. Maps, rail junctions, active depots, tunnels that don't appear on old schematics. She's sketching blind, and she's right. We compare one of her maps to an overlay of the 1991 National Emergency Logistics Plan. It matches, right down to the underground service routes feeding into the old Fort McCoy launch corridor, a place that was never meant to be accessed again. Harper says that's where they were buried, not the infected, the architects. I ask what that means. She looks out the window and says nothing, but I think I already know. We reach the outskirts of Casper by morning. The valley is still, no fires, no wrecks, no ambush signs, just dust and silence. The main rail yard is intact, at least what's visible. 4 rusted tankers, half a dozen grain silos, 1 collapsed loading dock, no human remains, no drag trails, no graffiti, no markings at all. The cleanest place we've seen in months. Too clean. I cut speed to 6 miles per hour and start a crawl pattern, circling the yard perimeter. Lena mans the hatch gun. Emmett checks for loose lines. Rena holds Harper's hand without speaking. We all feel it. The tension in the air, like the whole landscape is waiting to exhale. It's not just the silence, it's the stillness. The absence of chaos feels less like safety and more like staging, like someone, or something, cleared the board before we arrived. The old maintenance shed looms to our left, window shattered, metal warped. But the concrete base is solid, no growth around the foundation, no signs of scavenger nests or infected scrawl. That's the first red flag. There should be signs of life. Even in death, there's usually some mark of it. Here there's nothing but neat geometry, perfectly spaced rails, evenly broken glass, doors ajar at angles that suggest intention, not neglect. I bring the iron convoy to a full stop just beyond the fueling platform, locking the brakes with deliberate force. The cabin jerks slightly, the cars behind us lurching into alignment like vertebrae adjusting after a long ride. For a moment, no one speaks. Then I give the signal. 1 long blast on the cabin buzzer, 3 seconds, then a pause. This tells the crew 2 things. Disembark with caution and bring full kit. Lena's the first down the ladder, rifle slung, eyes scanning the shed entrance. Emmett follows with the crowbar and the tool pack. I take up rear with the external keyring and a flare, just in case we need to mark ground fast. Rena stays with Harper inside the medical car. We don't debate that. If something's about to go wrong, the girl doesn't need to be in the open when it happens. The air here has a weight to it, not in temperature but in sound. The kind of dead weight you find in deep caverns or sealed bunkers, where echoes go to die and the silence folds inward like collapsing lungs. Dust shifts at our feet, swirling in unnatural patterns as we move toward the open door of the shed. There's no wind, no vibration, but the dust dances anyway, like it's moving around something we can't see. The interior of the shed is dark but not pitch. A few strips of daylight cut through broken ceiling panels, illuminating a long row of service bays and rusted diagnostic tables. On one far wall, a control console blinks faintly, still powered. That's impossible. We haven't seen active power grids in over a year. Every station, every outpost, even the military-grade compounds we passed on the western ridge were dark. But here, in the middle of nowhere, a console glows like it was waiting for someone to wake it. Lena clears left. Emmett moves to the right wall. I go center, approaching the console slow, watching every inch of concrete for pressure points or tripwires. But there's nothing. No traps, no defense systems. Just a narrow screen displaying a single line of green text. Authorized access required. I try the basic keys we've used on scavenged tech before, standard bypass patterns, a few dummy codes from old DHS protocols. Nothing works. Then I try something more specific, a 6-digit sequence copied from the tag around Harper's neck. I punch it in, letter by letter, number by number. The screen flickers. Access granted. What follows isn't a menu. It's a log, video feed, static for a moment, then a time-stamped recording from inside this same building, dated nearly 400 days ago. The camera shows a group of people, military uniforms, respirators, no insignias. They're escorting civilians into the shed, separating them by age. Each group is led toward the back of the facility where large metal hatches stand open. Then the image skips. The hatches close, and the sound cuts in. A single voice, distorted by Mars filter. They'll sleep until the rest burns out. If it doesn't, we bury them deeper. The screen cuts. And then I understand what this place is. It's not a fuel station, it's a containment vault. I call Lena over. She sees what I've seen. Emmett just mutters something under his breath and looks toward the rear door. He knows what's behind it now. We all do. We don't go deeper, not yet. We return to the convoy, keeping the pace steady, rifles low but ready. When we climb back aboard, I go straight to the med car. Harper is waiting. She doesn't look surprised, just tired. She asks if the vault still works. I don't answer. Then she says something that freezes me. They weren't just infected. They were taken. I ask her what she means. She draws it again, circle, triangle, line. Then underneath, something new, a spiral, inward turning, like a galaxy collapsing on itself. She says it's not the virus that controls them, it's the memory inside the virus, a signal encoded into biological decay, something old, something buried beneath the first cities, the first bones, the first fire pits of civilization. Not alien, not divine, just ancient and patient. I sit back against the wall of the medbay and watch the flicker of the vault light through the windshield. I think of all the infected we've seen that never stopped moving, all the screamers that knew how to mimic voices, all the ones that didn't rot like the rest, the ones that seemed to wait. Harper stands and moves toward the door. We can't keep running, she says. They already know where you are. They've always known. I ask her what she wants to do. Seal the vault, lock the signal in, burn the loop. Rena stares at her, half in disbelief. You mean trap them? Harper nods. Trap the memory, the message. Every infected that responds to the call will come here if we light the beacon again. Lena's already shaking her head. And what happens to us when we're surrounded by 10,000 infected drawn to the same point? Harper looks toward the horizon. You keep moving, like you always have. I'll stay. That breaks the silence. Rena protests first. Emmett follows. Even Deke speaks up, saying we don't leave people behind. Not like that. But Harper isn't asking for permission. She's already moving. She knows the sequence. She knows the vault systems. She was part of this once, or something like it. The rest of us are just passengers in a story that started long before the virus ever touched our blood. I make the call. We help her prep the vault. We seal the doors. We reroute fuel to power the backup grid and re-rig the train's cabin antenna as a temporary uplink. Harper steps inside, flanked by rows of dormant infection pods, massive sealed containment units we thought were legends. Inside a few we see shapes, not moving, not asleep either, just waiting. We don't look for long. The door seals behind her. We fire up the engines. The train pulls out of Casper at full throttle, the rails groaning with speed as we climb the ridge on the far side. In the distance, a new light appears, green, flickering, steady, a signal pulse, old frequency, the one we've heard for months without understanding. Now we know. The signal wasn't a warning, it was a beacon, and now it calls them home. We ride through the night. 30 miles out, we see the first infected running toward the valley, full sprint. They don't notice us. They don't deviate. Every one of them heads for the light. Sprinters, screamers, even the shamblers that haven't moved in weeks. All drawn to that pulse. I mark the coordinates and write a final log. Day 644, vault sealed, signal active, Harper within, iron convoy continues west. No pursuit, no delay. We don't speak of her again, not because we forget, but because some things are too big to carry. Some things deserve silence. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.